play one another. At some point, the clock will stop, and if they're tied, well, then you go to overtime, but you'll keep doing that. Eventually, the clock will stop when they're trading goals, and one will win. How does that make the other any less admirable? And we'll talk about how, people they like a big win once in a while. It's fun, but they get bored with that. They like the close games. Those are the ones they remember. The blowouts they'll talk about, it'll be, if it's a rivalry, that'll be fine. But for the most part, if there's no competition, there's no admiration. And we forget that part. And there was a celebration I saw recently on a field. It was the collegiate level. It was women's lacrosse playoffs for the champion to get into the early rounds of the playoffs this spring. And the two teams that were playing had played literally just the week before at the end of their conference play and were seeded to play each other for the first round. And it was a very physical game. Women's lacrosse does not have helmets, but it is a physical game, much like soccer. Football is a very physical game. And at the end, the strangest thing happened. It was one team had won, obviously, but the two teams started posing for pictures. As we were just sitting in the stands, we were looking at the other side, and they all got together. They were taking pictures. They combined benches. I mean, they were two warring factions. They were really taking it to each other. There were penalties. There was not dirty play, but there were penalties. And then, all of a sudden, they went into a dance-off. They actually separated after their pictures, and one girl from each side came out, and they started dancing. And they said, okay, your turn. I'll do that. And it ended with the two coaches even doing it. And then they all came back together again for all these pictures. And I posted a video of that. It was the most amazing thing that nobody was going to know about. And they both realized they had been so equal in their previous game. They were matched up again 2 weeks in a row. And one team had actually, the same team had won both games. But that didn't make the other team any less worthy. And they showed it by coming together. And it was stunning to see that. And I think that is, those young women who are in their 20s, 18 to 22, hopefully those 50 women will carry that and make things a little bit better.
No, it's a very beautiful story. Thanks a lot for sharing that. And I'm reminded of a couple of insights from my own experience, especially in the sport for development sector. First of all, I think it's important that we remind ourselves, especially when we're working with children and young adults, why it is that we like to do sport. It's all about developing friendships and having fun. And often there's a lot of pressure from parents at a very early age to perform. And that often takes away the fun and the friendship. And because of that, a lot of young people stop doing sports that they used to love. That's an important realization. And as far as values are concerned, I also think it's important to look at and appreciate that we all have different perceptions of what fair play means. And maybe there is a need for us to get further aligned. I mean, what does it mean to play in a fair way? And what does it mean to play with integrity? And talking about winning and losing, I think it's nicely put along the lines of, as far as integrity in sport is concerned, winning with humility and losing with dignity.
And I'm not sure people really know what those two things mean. The humility can almost seem sheepish, that you're really not that strong, or you can't, you're not supposed to appreciate it. Maybe can you kind of get into how you see what are the behaviors of of true dignity and true humility are?
Well, if you look at a current example, I think you can probably find these examples in any sport. But again, looking at the ongoing World Cup in soccer, some teams have. We notice it immediately just when we watch. Some teams have been very good at showcasing exactly what I'm advocating, and others have. Been showcasing the opposites. No? So the other day, no need to mention names or specific countries, but the other day there was a team winning, and eventually, as the match was over, they actually ridiculed the coach of the losing team in front of him and his team of players. And for me, that's very disrespectful and very far away from winning with humility. And I think, frankly, there should not be room for behavior like that in sport. I think you should be able to show your appreciation of winning, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of the team losing.
I would agree, and I think that the sport, American football, as in not the round one, and basketball, I love those two sports. I absolutely do, but I think that there is so much celebration, excessive celebration, not for the purpose of, we scored, we made a great play, way to go. But there is self-celebration of, look what I did, I'm better than you, you should quit. That's the message. You'll see a player in, again, American football, he'll catch a long pass. It'll be amazing. Some will get up and run back to the huddle, and the teammates will be the celebratory. They'll give him a pat, slap on the helmet, say, wow, that was great. That's good. You'll see others that will get up and they'll start celebrating as if they scored the winning touchdown. And it is the middle of the game, in the middle of the field. The goal hasn't been accomplished yet. It's strictly to it's an intimidation game, and the same for basketball. They score 100 points. I mean, that is around 60 times they shoot the ball through the hoop in a game, and each one can't be that special. There's no need to, hold your excitement in entirely. But I look at those two, and that is what, the trash talk, the smack talk. That's a sign of somebody that isn't as good as their words and their volume and their body language claim to be. And I think you're right, especially as emotional. I mean, we love our sports here in the States, but the world really loves soccer. I mean, it is truly emotional. It's not a pastime. It's not a passion. It's above that, and the players do have that pressure. But I think that is, getting back to your earlier point. It's a reflection of society. It's where we are so afraid to lose that when we win, it's partly because when we lose, someone's shoving it in our face, saying, look, you're inferior, you lost. And I think that zero tolerance. Should somebody be fired for behavior like that? No. But that's something to where they should be pulled aside. There should be an apology, like you say, the other team saying, I'm not kicking them off the team, but we've talked, that's not how we are. And you'll see that on occasion. I just wish there was more of that. Again, to acknowledge the imperfections, not try and hide them or set a standard that should never happen. Of course, it's going to happen every tournament. There's going to be poor behavior. There should be at every level because we are human, but it shouldn't be dismissed to the point where people believe it's okay and it becomes almost endearing.
Sure. And coming back to what I talked about before about the principal, unprincipled, and the followers, I think it's important that we don't just look at sanctioning cases of unfair behavior or behaviors that are, let's say, far away from sportsmanship as we would generally define it. I think equally important it is that we work out ways of highlighting and recognizing and incentivizing leadership, the ones who actually show high levels of fair play and sportsmanship. And I'm particularly encouraged by what has been introduced in a country like Portugal. In Portugal, they have basically introduced an additional card for the referee, a white card. And the white card is for the referee to recognize particularly high levels of sportsmanship and fair play, be it a specific player, be it a coach, be it a team, or even be it the spectators of a specific team. And I think that's also something that can actually engage the fans and make everybody aware of and appreciate, this really matters, sportsmanship and fair play.
I think that is exactly what all sports need, because you'll see that player that picks up the other one. You'll see the one, or even they don't retaliate. They get up and they say, "Okay, that was a tough play." It's not so much for the, it's not about the excellence, of the physical play. It's not for saying, "Wow, that was a great score, a great stop." It is that sportsmanship, and I love that. And again, it's one of those things where you say, why didn't we all think of that so much earlier? To put it not at the end of the season in the team banquet that you get the sportsmanship award, but to acknowledge it on the field to all the teams, to all the players, that no one has to win it for the season, but they all have the opportunity multiple times throughout a game. And if the official ran out of cards, I know they don't actually hand them to him, but if they wore out that white card over and over, how wonderful would that be? So,
indeed.
Now,
and maybe reflecting a bit further on it, maybe this is also my chance to share another observation. You could even ask yourself, so why is it that we need a referee for two teams to play fairly against each other?
Right.
Why shouldn't they be able to self-police and play a beautiful game? And what is it that happens when the referee is turning his back to you? What is the kind of behavior we see? I'm particularly encouraged by a sport like ultimate frisbee.
Yes.
Because they have shown, even in their professional leagues, that sport can actually be done in a beautiful way without a referee at play. Because in their sport, even at a professional league level, they have to self-police. There is no such thing as a referee. And it works nicely in their sport, so why shouldn't it be able to work out nicely in other sports as well?
Did you write a post on that? Because I read something about that, and it made so much sense, and I thought about that. Have you ever done any writing on Ultimate, as an example?
I have not, but now I'm feeling compelled to do so.
Because I've read it, and it's funny that you brought that up, because, and I think more people should look into that it really, I didn't realize that the rules were you self-police. And it made me think about how I never had a problem playing pickup basketball when we were our referees. There were only problems with, dirty play when in formal games with officials and rules in place. When we played in, courts that weren't even, the basket was tilted. Even again, there may have been pushing. We all agreed that's too much, and we would call penalties on ourselves, saying, "Yeah, and because you knew that, okay, I took it too far. I'm going to call it on myself because I don't want this to escalate, and that's not how I want to play. That's not working. Or